Hello, everybody. Welcome to Afterlife Topics and Metaphysics. This is Cyrus, and before we begin tonight's topic, I do need to give an update about my health. If you don't care about this, just skip past this part and go to the rest of the video. But I gotta mention that a lot of my symptoms that I've been struggling with for a while now, they really got worse in the last month for some reason. They've gotten a lot better in the last week, but on the flip side of that, my fatigue has gone up about 1,000%. This means doing a lot of basic things has suddenly gotten very difficult. Sometimes it's more tempting to just lay in my bed. I can barely go outside, I can barely shop, and my productivity has also gone down quite a bit. It's difficult sometimes to even focus and do things at my computer. That said, I'm still going to keep trying to get videos up. But these bouts of this fatigue, it's really making things challenging. Now, I want to be optimistic about this and say maybe my body is finishing fighting the rest of this virus out of my system. I have been taking some strong antiviral supplements like quercetin. And maybe that's doing the trick. And this is what they call emphasis on post-virus fatigue, which could last anywhere from few days, a few weeks to a few years, depending on how badly affected your body was when it goes into, I guess, like a recovery and repairing phase, which is what post-virus fatigue is. Doctors actually don't know exactly what causes it or why it happens. So I've been trying different strategies to deal with this, and like my roommate who has chronic fatigue told me you can't fight it off, you can't think you can walk it off, it'll just make it worse. But I also think that, what I'm experiencing may be different than that, because I'm noticing that if I feel just totally incapacitated, if I make myself get up, make myself kind of get out of bed and walk around the yard, walk around the house, maybe do some qigong, do some stretching, it seems to subside well enough, and then I feel some energy come back into me, and then I can, for example, make a video. But I know actually dozens of people at this point who are suffering from the same virus, the same sickness, in the same stage that I'm at, where their body becomes super fatigued. So if you know anything that might help, feel free to let me know. One person told me that their fatigue went away when they began taking iron supplements. Lord knows I'm taking so many supplements right now, I'm sure I smell like some weird mineral. But if it takes one more supplement, maybe I'll try that. So I want to get that out there, and I am going to work double time to overcome this and try to keep up with this work. Lord knows if I was doing like a normal job or having to go to work someplace, well, I wouldn't be able to do that, because if the fatigue gets bad enough, I actually am close to passing out. And this is about all I can do probably for the foreseeable future. And we'll see if I ever get my old life back again, but I'm going to stay optimistic and just keep fighting. Tonight's topic is, what does it really mean to be an eternal soul? And so in a lot of the videos that I've put up lately, we've been talking about the concept of the multiverse. We've also talked about the concept of the higher self, and that there can be more than one of you in existence at any given time. Even though you may think of yourself as just one person, it's interesting for you to imagine that there can be a different version of you, a higher version of you, or a higher version can have a lesser version, or there could be midway points. But the point is, there is a different branches of you existing simultaneously. So this gets even more complicated when we go into the concept of a multiverse, that is to say, parallel timelines. That there's different versions of you for any possibility that could exist. So now you're dealing with not only like this kind of team of like higher selves, and astral self, and upper spiritual, spirit soul self, then who you are, and in different incarnations, but then endless parallel realities and versions of all of those existing. So what crossed my mind then is the idea that who you are could only be, half a, not half a percent, half of a fraction of a grain of sand of the number of yous that exist, or the aspects of you that exist. And if that's the case, what does this also say about our relationships to people? So, is it possible then that you could, in some ways, know or interact with a parallel version of somebody else? Is it possible that a individual is so fragmented or split apart in endless different possibilities and versions that you could literally just dream up of somebody, imagine somebody, or they literally have a dream about somebody, and that version of them is still just as real and justifiably them as any other version? What if simply just using your imagination about someone creates a parallel timeline with that person, and then that's another version of them that exists and is just as justifiable, just as real as any other version? So that being said, I think this may have some implications in terms of grief. So when we are grieving someone we've lost and we are visualizing them, are we not coming in sort of connection with that sort of universal concept that is that person's soul, even if we're not directly interacting with that individual concept, right? So obviously with the afterlife, I know that we can meet the individual concepts of a person again, but I also think that there is this universal concept that we have to think about. The universal concept then being all of the kind of infinite fragments of a soul, of a person, kind of looking at all of that from the macro perspective, you'll think of a person as being sort of this innate thing that's in the universe, right? I liken it to a color. Okay, so if you think of the color blue, this is innate in the universe. It'll always exist in the universe, unless it's only the blue is just only in our cones and rods, and it's, if there's no humans, there's no color blue. I guess you could make that argument, but I don't think so. I think that the color blue is an innate concept, like you can't get rid of it. And I'm beginning to think that a human soul, which is just a soul, a personality, when you meet someone, you feel that energy, you feel who they are, that this energy that you're feeling is also an innate concept in the universe. And there's infinite different expressions of that concept, in the sense that there could be a grand, all-powerful, deified version, or like a lesser, kind of crappy version that you may meet here on Earth, right? So there's these different concepts of these souls that we meet, which is us. But nonetheless, it's an innate concept. So this also may explain how it is that people who claim to be channeling all these different entities, but they didn't know them personally, like, I don't know, channeling Eric, who, claims to be channeling every single celebrity who dies the moment they die. Well, how they may be believing that they're contacting that individual, but what they're really contacting is, you could call it the oversoul, or you could call it like the innate essence of something's existence. But what's funny about this is that if you compare this to the individual soul, there's a very big difference here. So it's like the individual soul is like the focused individualization of that oversoul. And the oversoul, the greater spectrum, could be many, 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 many different versions of that soul. But what we care about is that, who cares about the other, 900 quintillion versions of me? What matters is this version in this particular reality, in this universe. Because, well, this is the universe that we all happen to be sharing. This is the way that the cosmic dice were thrown, and so we're all here. And so there's this version of Cyrus, this version of you, this version of your parents, of your children, of your family, of everybody around us. So I don't particularly have an interest in forging a relationship with a different version of anybody else. What I think most of us care about is the individualized versions that you and me know personally. And that's why I think that it is a little bit, maybe coming from a position that's like a bit confused, to think that contacting the oversoul, contacting the grand essence, is the same or adds up to contacting the individual. I think we have to know or understand that distinction between those two concepts to know whether you're speaking or whether you're communicating or channeling or feeling the essence of the actual person that you knew on this side, or if this is the essence. Is it the color blue in general, or is it that one thing that was colored that happened to share the same color of blue? If that makes any sense? Keep in mind, this could be the fatigue and brain fog talking. Maybe I'm not making any sense here, so just bear with me. Some of this made sense this morning when I was laying in bed thinking about it, but I do think it's something to think about. It's just like we have to try to comprehend the idea that there can be so many different versions of us, just at the bare minimum. And maybe when we call the higher self or the oversoul at the highest level is that common thread that holds it all together. So maybe there's an infinite versions of Cyrus in infinite parallel realities, infinite versions of the astral world, and then there's these close-knit ones, like my direct other incarnations, my direct presence on an astral condition. And then, of course, there's the immediate me that is the most individualized at this moment, because consciousness or source consciousness, whatever you want to call it, is seeing the universe through my eyes. And so as difficult as it may be to believe or fathom or wrap your mind around, there can be many, many versions of you also. And if there really is infinite, then literally every time you envision somebody, you put somebody into your imagination, you put somebody into your thoughts, you may as well be creating a parallel timeline with them in it. So I don't think that there is any getting any replacement for someone's exact individualized self on this plane, but I do think, for example, it's possible to have an experience with a different version of somebody on a different timeline or a different manifestation. So sometimes when someone's grieving somebody really badly, but they're not able to contact them on the other side, like sometimes you end up going into kind of a fantasy or a dream reality with somebody. But it's important to take note that even if you're meeting somebody in a dream reality, if it's that same essence of that person, even if it's not the exact version that you knew, it still is that same person. And maybe this is the greater point I'm trying to get across here. It's that if you meet somebody in a dream, and it's just a dream, you're not out of your body, you're not having a paranormal experience, if that dream is manifesting that same essence, that same color blue that it was attached to that person you knew, then by definition it's still that person that you knew, even if it doesn't match up exactly to how you knew them before, or it's not consistent, right? And that is one of the big differentiating factors, is the consistency. So in this world we have a consistent sort of relationships with people from one day to the next, and that relationship grows and it progresses. In a kind of dream reality, you may not get that because it's a one-off thing. But of course, again, if you can get into the astral projection angle, then you can again have those consistent experiences where you can remember the last time you met, and the relationship grows and progresses. The next thing I wanted to talk about is if we are all eternal souls, are we perfect? So I think that maybe some of that spiritualist literature or some of those New Age books that say that we are perfect as, at the top of the hierarchy, if you want to call it, and on the macro perspective, through the eyes of God, that we are perfect. And perhaps that makes sense, because if you're talking about the oversoul, the highest level of who and what you are, kind of has to be perfect to be able to be the arbiter of its infinite little branch offs. And so this is all just from one personality. And ultimately it does come back around to a primary concept, which is that a personality is, again, it's an innate thing in the universe. Because some people argue that there is no such thing as personality, that it's just a construct of the illusion of consciousness of the brain. People like Sam Harris like to make arguments like this. And of course I don't believe that. because when you are able to interact with people on an energy-based level, then you will find that everybody has its own unique essence. And when we can see the best in somebody, we are punching through maybe the very broken form that we meet on this planet. We get to, we can look at, even briefly, its highest self, its oversoul, which is perfect. So when you feel, when you experience the best in somebody else, I think you're looking through, kind of looking past, looking through the looking glass, if you will, looking through the smoke, and you're seeing kind of what that person's higher essence is really all about. And that is also part of having a relationship with somebody here. That's very positive. If you can even briefly look past all the crap and their personality flaws and their issues, and somewhere inside is that like kind of pure essence that's trying to come out. And the same can be said for you. And maybe that's what self-development or spiritual progression is, how it's really defined, is that inside of you, somewhere behind endless layers of crap, is sort of this really perfect, essence of who and what you are, which is also what the higher self is. Well, it's very complicated. It's a lot to think about, and I'm not expecting this is something that anyone can truly understand in one go at it. It is metaphysical philosophy, and it is a difficult thing to for anyone to wrap their minds around. But I'm curious what you think in the comments down below. What do you think of these concepts? If you've had any experiences that maybe add some weight to these just philosophical ideas I'm just throwing out there. If you like this video, please hit that subscribe button, or like or share to help keep this channel going. Get involved at afterlifetopics.com, join the Facebook group, or if you want to become a patron, help donate to this work, then all that information is down below. I really appreciate any help, especially right now that anybody wants to give. And a special thanks and shout out to you guys who are patrons, helping keep this work going. I'm not going to forget about you guys. I'm going to keep videos coming up, going to keep content. You can always message me. I'll still work with you. Just got to deal with my crazy fatigue and health issues, and presumably someday I'll get better from all that. All right, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys on the next video.